Princess Lyra stood at the viewing deck of the royal ship, watching as her home world grew smaller in the distance. The blue-green planet with its 3 moons had been her entire life for 22 cycles. Now it was just another dot in the vast blackness of space. "Your Highness, we will reach Earth in 14 standard days," said Commander Vex, bowing slightly. Lyra did not turn to face him. "And I suppose I should be grateful for this exile." "It is for your protection," Vex said carefully. "The political situation—" "I know the situation." Lyra cut him off. Her hands gripped the railing tightly, the metallic scales on her fingers catching the dim light. "My father lost power. My sisters were married off to friendly systems, and I am the inconvenient third daughter with no strategic value." Vex remained silent. They both knew she spoke the truth. In the royal courts of the Stellar Imperium, third children were political afterthoughts. First children inherited power. Second children secured alliances through marriage. Third children were insurance, spares for the worst-case scenarios. But when those scenarios didn't happen, third children became problems. Earth. Lyra said the word like it tasted strange. A backwater planet that only achieved spaceflight in the last century. "They are resourceful," Vex offered. "Their adaptability is impressive for such a young species." Lyra finally turned, her violet eyes narrowed. Unlike full-blooded royals whose skin shimmered with a metallic luster, Lyra's hybrid heritage gave her a more subtle glow. Her mother had been from the outer colonies, giving Lyra features that never quite matched the royal ideal. "My mission brief says I am to establish diplomatic relations," she said. "But we both know I'm being hidden away until the political winds change, if they ever do." Vex looked uncomfortable. "Your father believes this is temporary." "My father sent guards to kill me if I refused to board this ship," Lyra said flatly. "Let's not pretend this is about my safety. This is about erasing an embarrassment." The truth hung heavy between them. Assassins had already made 2 attempts on her life in the palace, not from enemies, but from her father's new allies who saw the unmarried princess as a potential rallying point for opposition forces. "Your identity will be concealed," Vex said. "To the Earth officials, you will be Diplomat Lyra, not Princess Lyra." She laughed without humor. "How thoughtful. I lose my title along with my home. The human liaison officer has been informed of your arrival. They're sending someone called a security specialist to work with our team." Lyra walked to the star map displaying the Earth system. Such a small, isolated place. 1 yellow star, 1 habitable planet, no significant colonies beyond their moon. "Do the humans know how insignificant they are in the grand scheme?" she asked. "That is perhaps why they were chosen," Vex replied carefully. "No one would think to look for you there." Lyra pressed her hand against the cool surface of the map. "And if my father's enemies find me anyway? What then?" "The ship will remain in orbit for the first month. After that—" Vex trailed off. "After that, I'm on my own," Lyra finished for him. She returned to the viewing port, watching the stars stretch as the ship entered faster than light travel. Her old life disappeared completely, replaced by streaks of light against the darkness. Somewhere ahead was Earth. Somewhere ahead was exile. Somewhere ahead, though Lyra didn't know it yet, was her future. Jack Morgan stood at attention near the landing pad, watching the alien ship descend through Earth's atmosphere. The silver craft moved without sound, a feat of engineering that made Earth's best ships look like children's toys. "Nervous, Morgan?" asked his supervisor, Director Allen. "No, sir," Jack replied, adjusting his tie. "Just another diplomatic detail." Allen snorted. "Yeah, except these diplomats are from another star system. Try not to start an interstellar war." Jack had been chosen for this assignment because of his military background and his calm under pressure. At 34, he had served in enough conflict zones to know when to act and when to observe. The file on his tablet said the alien delegation was a minor diplomatic mission, nothing special. The ship landed with barely a whisper. A ramp extended, and 5 figures emerged. 4 were clearly guards, tall with metallic skin that caught the sunlight. The 5th was different, smaller, with a more subtle shimmer to her skin and striking violet eyes. Director Allen stepped forward with practiced diplomacy. On behalf of Earth's United Nations, I welcome you to our planet. The central figure, clearly female despite her alien features, nodded slightly. I am Diplomat Lyra of the Stellar Imperium. These are my security detail. Jack studied her carefully. Something didn't add up. The 4 guards positioned themselves like they were protecting royalty, not a minor diplomat. And the way this Lyra carried herself, back straight, chin raised, spoke of someone used to being obeyed. The formalities continued as they moved inside the facility. Jack fell into step beside one of the alien guards. First time on Earth? Jack asked casually. The guard looked at him with golden eyes. Yes, it is smaller than expected. Jack smiled. We make up for it in other ways. Throughout the tour of the diplomatic compound, Jack watched Lyra. She asked intelligent questions about Earth's governments, military capabilities, and resource management, not the usual topics for cultural exchange. That evening, as the aliens settled into their quarters, Jack reviewed security footage from his office. Something still bothered him about the delegation. A sharp crack interrupted his thoughts. Gunfire. Jack grabbed his sidearm and ran toward the alien quarters. 2 human bodies in black tactical gear lay in the hallway. One of the alien guards was wounded, blue blood seeping from his shoulder. Inside Lyra's quarters, Jack found chaos. Another attacker was engaging the remaining guards. Lyra herself was cornered, a small energy weapon in her hand. Without hesitation, Jack fired twice. The attacker dropped. Are you hurt? Jack asked, moving quickly to Lyra. No, she said, her voice steady despite the situation. Your reaction time is impressive for a human. Part of the job, Jack said, checking the room for additional threats. Though I'd like to know why assassins are targeting a minor diplomatic mission. Lyra and the head guard exchanged looks. It seems, Lyra said slowly, that we must adjust our approach. The guard bowed deeply to Lyra. Your Highness, the security has been compromised. Protocol dictates full disclosure to local authorities. Jack's eyes narrowed. Your Highness. Lyra straightened, suddenly looking every bit the royalty she was. I am Princess Lyra, 3rd daughter of Emperor Cav of the Stellar Imperium, and it appears my father's enemies have found me sooner than expected. Jack holstered his weapon. Well, Your Highness, I think we need to have a conversation about exactly what kind of diplomatic mission this is. Lyra looked at him with new respect. Yes, Security Specialist Morgan. I believe we do. Outside, sirens wailed as Earth security forces responded to the attack. The simple diplomatic mission had just become much more complicated. 3 weeks after the attack, Lyra paced in the secure apartment that now served as her temporary home. Earth's governments had increased security around the diplomatic compound, but it didn't matter anymore. It's confirmed, Your Highness, said Commander Vex, his metallic features grim. The Imperial Palace has fallen. Your father and mother are dead. Lyra stopped pacing. She had expected this news, but hearing it still felt like a physical blow. My sisters, she asked quietly. The oldest was executed. The second has pledged loyalty to the new regime. Lyra nodded slowly. And what of me? The new government has officially revoked your diplomatic status, Vex said. They demand your return to stand trial for crimes against the Imperium. Crimes that mean execution, Lyra said flatly. The door opened, and Jack Morgan entered with Director Allen. Both men looked serious. I assume you've heard the news, Jack said. Lyra nodded. My diplomatic protection is gone. Director Allen cleared his throat. Earth's United Nations is undecided on how to proceed. Some want to turn you over to maintain good relations with the new regime. And others? Lyra asked. Others recognize that sending you back would mean your death, Jack said directly. But without diplomatic status, you have no legal right to remain on Earth. Lyra's mind raced. She had spent her life navigating political traps, but never with such high stakes. Her ship had already departed, a calculated move by her father to ensure she couldn't easily return. Now it seemed that decision would cost her life. There must be options, she said. Jack and Director Allen exchanged looks. There is one possibility, Jack said carefully. Earth has laws for political asylum, but they're complicated for non-humans. However, there's another option, family unification. Lyra frowned. I don't understand. If you were married to an Earth citizen, Director Allen explained, you would have legal status to remain here regardless of your home world's demands. The room went silent as Lyra processed this information. You want me to marry a human? She finally asked. It would be an arrangement, Jack said. A legal solution to a political problem. Commander Vex stepped forward. Your Highness, this is beneath your royal status. Lyra raised her hand to silence him. My royal status is what will get me killed, Commander. She turned to Jack. Who would agree to such an arrangement? Jack met her gaze steadily. I would. You. Lyra studied him with surprise. Why? I'm assigned to your protection, Jack said simply. This is the most effective way to fulfill that duty. Director Allen coughed awkwardly. I'll give you time to discuss this. The UN Security Council meets tomorrow to decide your fate. He left, closing the door behind him. This is outrageous, Vex protested. A princess of the blood cannot marry a what, Commander? Lyra interrupted. A human who risked his life to save mine when my own people are hunting me. She turned to Jack. This arrangement, it would be temporary. Jack nodded. If conditions change, we could dissolve it. But until then, it would give you legal protection Earth's governments would have to recognize. Lyra walked to the window, looking out at the unfamiliar skyline of the human city. She had lost everything. Her family, her status, her home. Now she was being offered survival through an unthinkable alliance. She turned back to Jack. I accept your offer, Security Specialist Morgan. Jack nodded once. Then we should prepare. The ceremony can be small, but it needs to be legally binding. As he left to make arrangements, Lyra felt a strange mix of emotions. She had come to Earth as an unwanted princess. Now she would become a human's wife to survive. The universe, it seemed, had a strange sense of humor. This bread is strange, Lyra said, examining the toast on her plate. 1 month into their marriage, breakfast was still a daily challenge. Jack looked up from his coffee. It's just toast. Try it with jam. Lyra carefully spread the red substance on the bread, then took a small bite. Her eyes widened slightly. This is acceptable, she declared, which Jack had learned was high praise. Their small apartment had become a strange mixture of human and alien. Jack's simple furniture now shared space, with the few royal possessions Lyra had brought to Earth. A military metal display case sat next to a shelf holding crystalline objects from her homeworld. I have to go to work, Jack said, standing up. Will you be okay alone today? Lyra gave him a look. I commanded Royal Guard units before you learned to walk, Jack Morgan. I can manage a human dwelling. He smiled. Their arrangement had settled into an odd but workable routine. Jack continued his security work, while Lyra studied Earth cultures from the apartment. For her safety, they limited her public appearances. Your mother called again, Lyra said as Jack collected his keys. She wants to meet me. Jack winced. I told her we're keeping things private for now. You're ashamed of your alien wife, Lyra said matter-of-factly. No, Jack replied firmly. I'm protecting a princess who has assassins after her. The fewer people who know about you, the safer you are. Lyra nodded, but Jack could see she didn't fully believe him. How could he explain to his family that he'd married an alien princess as part of an interstellar political arrangement? After Jack left, Lyra moved to the window. From the 10th floor, she could see humans going about their daily lives. so primitive compared to her world, yet strangely fascinating. The door buzzer sounded, startling her. Moving carefully as Jack had taught her, she checked the security camera. Commander Vex stood outside, looking anxious. "What is it?" she asked after letting him in. "News from home, Your Highness," Vex said, bowing slightly despite her repeated requests to stop the formality. "The new regime has declared all royal bloodlines traitors. They've sent specialized hunters to find you." Lyra felt cold fear, but kept her expression neutral. "How many?" "At least 3 ships. They'll arrive within weeks." Lyra moved to the communication device Jack had given her for emergencies. As she reached for it, Vex caught her wrist. "There's more," he said quietly. "Some in the Resistance still loyal to your family have contacted me. They say you're becoming a symbol of hope." "Hope?" Lyra laughed bitterly. "I'm hiding on a backwater planet, pretending to be a human's wife." "Yet you survive," Vex said. "That alone gives courage to those who oppose the new regime." The door opened, and Jack entered, instantly alert at the sight of Vex. "We have a problem," Lyra said. Later that evening, after Vex left, Jack and Lyra sat in silence. The news had changed everything. "I've put you in danger," Lyra finally said. "These hunters won't care about human laws or marriages." Jack considered this. "I've faced dangerous people before. Not like these. They're bred for tracking and killing." Jack reached across the table, and to Lyra's surprise, took her hand. It was the first time he had touched her outside of their brief wedding ceremony. "When I made this arrangement," he said carefully, "I accepted the responsibilities that came with it." Lyra looked at their joined hands, her fingers with their subtle metallic scales against his human skin. "This isn't what you signed up for," she said quietly. Jack smiled slightly. "Actually, protecting people is exactly what I signed up for." For the first time since coming to Earth, Lyra felt something shift inside her. This human, with his simple determination, was unlike anyone she had known in the royal courts. "We'll need better security protocols," she said, slipping back into her training. Jack nodded. "And I should probably finally introduce you to my family. If trouble's coming, they should know." Outside the window, the sun set over the city that had become Lyra's reluctant new home. The princess-turned-wife looked at her human husband and wondered how this strange arrangement had become the one constant in her upended life. 3 months had passed since the news of the hunters. Jack had moved them twice, each time to a more secure location. Now they lived in a small house on the outskirts of the city, with security systems that blended human and alien technology. Lyra sat on the bathroom floor, staring at the medical device in her hand. She had been feeling strange for weeks. Tired, dizzy, and sick in the mornings. At first, she blamed the Earth food and atmosphere. Now she knew better. The door opened, and Jack appeared. "Lyra, you've been in here for an hour. Are you?" He stopped when he saw her face. "What's wrong?" Lyra held up the device. "This is a medical scanner from my world. It's designed to check for illness." Jack knelt beside her. "Are you sick?" "No." She took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant." Jack stared at her, his expression frozen. That's impossible. The scientists said our species weren't compatible that way." "They were wrong," Lyra said simply. She placed a hand on her stomach. "There is life growing here. Our genetic material has somehow combined." Jack sat heavily on the floor beside her. For several minutes, neither spoke. "A child," Jack finally whispered. "Half human, half imperial," Lyra finished. "The first of its kind." Jack ran a hand through his hair, trying to process this information. Their marriage had been an arrangement, a legal solution to a political problem. Now it had created something unprecedented. Is it safe for you?" he asked. Lyra appreciated that this was his first concern. "I don't know. This has never happened before." The implications started to dawn on them both. A child. And heir to the imperial bloodline. would be seen as an even greater threat to the new regime. The hunters would redouble their efforts. "We need to tell Commander Vex," Jack said, standing up. "And we need medical help, doctors who understand both our biologies." Lyra nodded, but as Jack turned to leave, she caught his hand. "Jack, wait. Are you upset about this?" He looked at her, his expression softening. "Upset? No. Shocked? Yes. Worried? Definitely." He squeezed her hand gently, but not upset. Relief flooded through her. Their relationship had changed over the months. What began as an arrangement had grown into something like friendship. They still maintained separate sleeping areas, still kept a careful distance, but they had developed a deep respect for each other. "This child will be hunted from birth," Lyra said quietly. "Then we'll protect it," Jack replied with simple determination. Together. Later that day, Commander Vex arrived with a trusted Imperial medical specialist who had been hiding among the diplomatic corps. "This is unprecedented," the doctor said after examining Lyra. "The child appears healthy, but its development will be unique." "Can you monitor the pregnancy?" Jack asked. "Yes, but we must be careful. If the new regime learns of this child—" "They already want to kill Her Highness," Vex interrupted. "This will only make them more determined." Jack paced the room, his military training kicking in. "We need to disappear completely. New identities, new location." Lyra watched him, seeing not just her arranged husband, but a man preparing to defend his family. The thought surprised her. When had she started thinking of them as a family? "The child will have traits from both our species," the doctor warned. "It may have abilities we cannot predict." Jack stopped pacing and looked at Lyra. Something passed between them, a shared recognition of the moment's importance. "Then we'll figure it out," he said, "one day at a time." That night, alone in her room, Lyra placed both hands on her stomach. Inside her grew a miracle, a child that should not exist, yet did, half royal, half human. A new beginning amid all the endings she had endured. For the first time since leaving her homeworld, Lyra felt a spark of hope. The cabin in the mountains was small but well hidden. Jack had called in favors from his military days to secure it, off the grid and away from prying eyes. Lyra, now 6 months pregnant, stood by the window watching snowfall. "Another storm coming," she said as Jack entered with firewood. "Good," he replied. "Storms cover our tracks." Lyra's pregnancy had progressed faster than a human's but slower than her species. Her belly was rounded now, and the doctor's last visit had confirmed the child was healthy, a miracle growing inside her. Jack set down the wood and checked his security monitors. A network of cameras surrounded their hideout, feeding into a system designed by Commander Vex. So far, they had remained undetected. "Tom will be here tomorrow with supplies," Jack said. Tom was one of his former team members who knew only that Jack was protecting someone important, not that his wife was an alien princess carrying their impossible child. Lyra nodded and winced suddenly, placing a hand on her stomach. Jack was at her side immediately. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she assured him. "The child is strong. It kicks like a warrior." Jack placed his hand next to hers, feeling the movement beneath. These quiet moments had become precious to them both. The security alarm shattered the peace. 3 short beeps indicating movement at the perimeter. Jack moved quickly to the monitors. "Vehicle coming up the access road," he said, his voice tight. "No one should know that road exists." Lyra moved to the hidden compartment where they kept emergency supplies. Hunters. Possibly. Jack grabbed his weapon and the go bag they kept ready. "We need to move to the backup location." As they prepared to leave, Jack's secure phone buzzed. Commander Vex's code flashed on the screen. 3 hunter ships entered Earth's atmosphere last night, Vex reported when Jack answered. "They used stealth technology to avoid detection. Earth's governments don't even know they're here." "How did they find us?" Jack asked, watching Lyra gather their essential medical supplies. "They're using blood trackers, Devices that can detect Imperial DNA signatures. Your location is still secure, but they're scanning the region. Jack's mind raced. The backup location. Will it hide her signature? Temporarily. The bunker has shielding, but it won't last forever. After disconnecting, Jack turned to Lyra. She had heard everything and was already putting on her coat, her face calm despite the danger. "I've put you in this position," she said quietly. Jack checked his weapon. "You didn't put me anywhere. I chose this." The monitor showed the vehicle getting closer. Jack zoomed in and felt a flash of relief. "It's Tom," he said, "but he's early and he's driving fast." Minutes later, Tom rushed inside, his face grim. "They're coming, Jack. Men asking questions in town, showing pictures of you and her, offering rewards for information." "Did anyone talk?" Jack asked. "Not yet, but it's a small town. Money talks eventually." Lyra stood straighter, her royal training evident even in crisis. "How long do we have?" "Hours, maybe," Tom said, eyeing her pregnant belly with surprise. "You didn't mention she was expecting." "It's complicated," Jack replied. He made a quick decision. "Tom, I need your team. The people after us aren't ordinary hunters." Tom didn't hesitate. "Already called them. They'll meet us at the bunker." As they loaded supplies into Tom's vehicle, Jack pulled Lyra aside. "These men were my brothers in combat. They don't know who you are, but they'll protect you with their lives." Lyra looked into his eyes. "And you? Will you stay with me?" Instead of answering, Jack did something he had never done before. He leaned forward and kissed her gently. When he pulled back, both seemed surprised by the action. "Always," he said simply. In the distance, the sound of approaching helicopters broke the mountain silence. The hunt had found them, but for the first time, Lyra wasn't facing danger alone. She had Jack. She had their child. And now, it seemed, she had a family to fight for. The underground bunker hummed with activity. Jack's team had transformed the cold military facility into a makeshift medical center. Lyra lay on the bed, her face shining with sweat as another contraction hit. "You're doing great," Jack said, holding her hand tightly. After 3 days in labor, their child was finally coming. Above them, the battle continued. The hunters had found them despite all precautions, but Jack's team and Vex's remaining loyal guards had created a defensive perimeter. Earth's military had finally been informed of the situation, and reinforcements were on the way. None of that mattered in this moment. Jack focused only on Lyra and the miracle about to enter the world. "One more push," the doctor urged. "The child is almost here." Lyra's strength was remarkable. Despite the pain, her eyes remained clear and determined. With a final effort, she brought their child into the world. A cry filled the room, strong and healthy. "A girl," the doctor announced, wrapping the infant in a blanket. "She appears. Perfect." Jack stared in wonder as the doctor placed the child in Lyra's arms. The baby had Lyra's violet eyes, but Jack's human features. A subtle shimmer on her skin caught the light, not as pronounced as Lyra's, but unmistakably there. "She's beautiful," Lyra whispered. Jack touched his daughter's tiny hand. "She's a miracle." Commander Vex burst into the room, his usually calm demeanor shaken. "Your Highness, we've received an urgent communication from home." "Can it wait?" Jack asked, protective of this moment. "No," Vex said. "The new regime is collapsing. Civil war has broken out. The people have learned that a royal heir exists." Lyra looked up sharply. "How could they know?" "Information leaked from Earth. Your story, the exiled princess who married a human and bore a child, has spread through the Imperium. You've become a symbol of hope, Your Highness." Jack and Lyra exchanged looks. Their private struggle had somehow become something much larger. "There's more," Vex continued. "Loyalists to your family are calling for your return. They want you to lead them." "Return," Jack said, alarm in his voice, "with hunters still after them." "The hunters have been recalled," Vex said. The new regime is losing control. They're fighting for survival now. Lyra looked down at her daughter, then at Jack. I never thought I would return home. Is that what you want? Jack asked quietly. Before she could answer, the doctor interrupted. The child's readings are unusual. Her DNA shows something I've never seen before. They gathered around the medical display. The doctor pointed to strange patterns in the results. She has abilities from both species, but they've combined in new ways. She appears to have accelerated healing, enhanced strength, and possibly more. She's truly unique. Jack and Lyra absorbed this information. Their daughter wasn't just a political symbol. She was the beginning of something entirely new. 1 week later, they stood on the landing pad where Lyra had first arrived on Earth. A ship waited to take them to space, not to flee, but to make history. Are you sure about this? Jack asked, holding their daughter, while Lyra spoke with Earth officials. No, Lyra admitted when she returned to his side. But it feels right. Their plan wasn't to return permanently to the Imperium or to stay on Earth. Instead, they would become ambassadors between the worlds, the first true bridge between their species. She will grow up in both worlds, Lyra said, looking at their sleeping daughter. Not just a princess, not just human. Something new. Jack smiled. A new dynasty. As they boarded the ship, Jack thought about how much had changed. He had accepted a diplomatic assignment and gained a family. Lyra had arrived as an unwanted princess and would return as a leader. And between them slept the impossible child, half human, half royal, who would one day unite two civilizations. The ship's doors closed, and they began their journey to the stars, not as exiles or hunters, but as family.